Hi everyone, welcome to part 3 of our 3-part series on rotary evaporator turnkey setups. I'm going to be operating this unit right here. It's a 10-liter rotary evaporator. You can see it's already at our set temperature. The heating intensity is much less than it was before. You can see the bars changing like that. I'm going to bring up the bath with these arrows. After the bath is at the top, we're going to make sure that the water needs to be up to the fill line. Sometimes during heating, it'll evaporate some of the water and you're going to need to replace some of it. See, I'll put a little bit more water in here just for better surface area. Some more of our reverse osmosis RO water. It's obviously going to change the temperature, but it should be heated right up in a second. Now I'm going to start the unit. It's going to push the spin button. The flask is set to spin at 120 RPM and there's already ethanol in the flask. So now that we have our evaporator spinning, all we have to do is start pulling a vacuum. I'm going to turn on my Welch vacuum pump, and then using our J-Chem, we're going to regulate the vacuum level. I'm going to set it to 100 torr. This ensures that we'll have evaporation. It is far below the vapor pressure curve of ethanol, which is what we're going to be evaporating. You can see the software will start to graph what's happening inside the roto. And it will level off around 100 torr when we get there. The gauge on the rotary evaporator will also be able to tell you exactly what's going on. It should line up with the J-Chem at all times. So we're just going to let it get down to 100 torr and you're going to start seeing evaporation. So now you can see that our J-Chem regulator has shut off our vacuum pump. The clicking means it's going on and off. It's at 99.6, which is pretty close to our 100 torr regulator setting. And then you can see inside our rotary evaporator that it is starting to boil off ethanol. The coils are condensing and it's all dropping into the receiving flask. Now the lower the vacuum level, the harder it will cause the ethanol to bump, which is when it bubbles up rapidly and it boils off. And bumping is bad because you can send some of your mixture of oil and ethanol through the glass axis, and it can even splash down into the receiving flask without evaporating or doing anything of that sort, and that can get contamination. This bump trap here is supposed to help you out. It'll catch most of it. It'll catch small bumps, but if there was a rapid boil at some point, it may not be able to catch all of it. Now back to our computer screen, just to take a look at our J-Chem software. See, right here is where we are now. It's regulating right at 100 torr like we told it to. This J-Chem is going to continue there until I tell it to go somewhere else. So just to make it evaporate a little faster, I don't have any oleo resin mixed in my ethanol. I'm going to set it to 50 torr. And we'll see what the graph looks like after that. You can see this little stair step we just made. The vacuum pulled down again. We're at 50 torr right there. And now our regulator will hold right at 50 torr. So the rest of the running of this unit is pretty simple. We have an injection valve here with the hose that I previously hooked up. We just have a bucket of ethanol for demonstration purposes. This would be your mixture of your oil with your solvent. So all we have to do is loosen this valve and it'll inject more solvent into the evaporating flask. Now you look in the flask, you can see it pouring in there. Something to look for after you have a little bit of experience running rotary evaporators, you can actually adjust your injection valve just slightly. It's too much there. And just let a little trickle go in. And you want to match this to the condensation rate. So if you look down in our receiving flask, you can see the small drip in the back. We're going to try to match that rate with our injection. Let's look at the evaporating flask here. I'm just going to be adjusting the input valves a little bit too much. Trying to get a slow drip that looks just like the drip into the receiving flask. This will kind of ensure that it won't have too much liquid in the evaporating flask, and it'll continue to refill itself as it evaporates off ethanol. So we're just going to let it run for a little while. So now that we collected some ethanol, I'm just going to show you how to use the check valve. It's the last part of operating this unit. The check valve is within the gasket that's inside this clamp here. All it does is it releases the vac in the bottom without releasing the vac in the top. So I'm going to close the valve by pushing it up with the air injected into this valve. Now the check valve is closed, and I can empty this flask while the rest of the system is still under vacuum. Just open up this bottom. You can see this hose is pouring out the ethanol. Just be a minute for that. Now that it's empty, I'm just going to close the bottom valve. I'm going to close the air inlet valve that we used to let the air in and close that check valve. And I'm going to open the check valve by using this. This is connected to the vacuum manifold up top. So I'm going to open that. And then when the vacuum pressure equalizes, it'll open the check valve for us. Thanks for watching this series on Turnkey Rotary Evaporators. I hope you found it useful.